All right, it says we're live, so we can stop our nonsense, say hello to the world. I know some people said they were going to be joining in
Hello,
via
world.
the stream.
Hello, world.
That's our first program. Anyone have questions that they're struggling with or anything before I launch into anything of my concerns? Anybody?
Security today?
It's always security, right? It's always an issue. It's always something to deal with. Yeah, actually, on that note, some conferences coming up. Penn State is in a month and a half, I guess, right?
End of June.
End of June. I'll be there. Who else will be there? Anybody? We all be there.
I'll be doing a workshop.
Nice. What are you doing a workshop on?
It's Mac deployment options.
There you go. That's good. Yeah, I'll be there. And speaking of Tom, who you were asking about, Tom and I are co-presenting a session on reverse engineering.
Are you guys Are you guys booked for 2 this time?
That was me and Russell last year. We weren't actually booked for 2.
It was like
wound up doing 2.
Yeah, because of demand, right?
The first one was pretty packed, and I think they wound up having some extra slot on Friday, and they just said, "Hey, we might as well fill it. If you guys want to do a repeat." So yeah, that was fun. It's a good conference. Good vibe. I'll be there. I'm looking forward to it. What reminded me of conferences was MacAdmin just announced all their speakers and their lineup. It's a conference in Sweden. I'll be speaking there again, and I'll be speaking about security. So I'm always thinking about security and what a mess it is, and what we can do about it, and what you should do about it. And then, of course, there's MacTech in November, which I've been speaking to a bunch of people, and some people have been doing speaker submissions for that, and I'm happy to say there's some good submissions coming in. Some people I'm still waiting to work out all the final details with. I could probably talk about, the big names that are always there, Greg Nagel and Charles Edge, talking to some other people about some ideas. So getting excited. MacTech in November. Please send me your suggestions. Send me your speaking proposals. That'd be very cool. So I wanted to ask a little bit about hardware. And 2 years ago at MacTech conference, we did a little hardware session, actually, led by Ed here. We handed out a bunch of little breadboards and teensy microprocessors, and we weren't allowed to solder in the hotel, but Ed pre-soldered a bunch of stuff and was able to set up this project that allowed people to connect all this stuff up without doing any soldering, and build their own keyboard switches, and so we had some fun. I know sometimes people get into Arduinos and Raspberry Pis, but I'm curious if anyone's doing it for anything sort of real, more than just, hey, this was kind of fun, and I made some lights blink. And I know Kapine said he was going to join us on the stream. Actually, he's typing in Slack right now. Said, was getting kids from school back to the computer now. So I guess he'll be joining. But I know he's doing a session at Penn State about running his NetBoot server on a Raspberry Pi. So you have a portable NetBoot server, which is kind of cool. We were running NetBoot here on Linux for quite some time. We're not really running NetBoot anymore, but when we were running it on Linux, and we did a bunch of presentations about it. And certainly, you could get a portable NetBoot server just by throwing it on any Mac, sure. But a Raspberry Pi is even a little bit more portable.
Certainly cheaper.
Certainly less expensive too. That's right. Hey. So yeah, I guess that's my question for everyone here. Is anyone actually doing anything with hardware development that's actually been useful, like running a server on a Raspberry Pi or whatever?
Our school has a CNC mill and PC that was used. You don't need a fast computer. You need a computer with. It's not a bandwidth problem controlling the machine. It's a round trip problem. So latency of the controller, because by the time you send the next command, if the mill has gone through another millimeter of aluminum, your project's ruined. So we have been experimenting with hardware to go in the middle. So you design on the computer, you load it onto. We're experimenting with Raspberry Pi. It seems to almost be up to the task, and then that talks to the controller, and then that talks to the machine. But
I don't remember. What's the Raspberry Pi? Is that x86? Anybody? That would
Yeah.
make it a lot easier. I don't remember. That's the x86 one.
That's it. So
Arduino's
it's a full
some
stack
Yeah.
computer.
based on x86.
But it's not 86 with. So the big ones in that space are the Raspberry Pi is a complete computer with a graphics controller and some graphics memory. BeagleBoard is another similar full stack computer on a single card, but it doesn't have the media controls that Raspberry Pi does. People often prefer Raspberry Pi because you can just attach a monitor to it. It's got an HDMI port on it. Attach a monitor.
I know some people built some little web servers and things, but I'm just curious about if anyone's doing anything useful or exciting or something that sort of impacts the Mac or Apple admin's life.
We used it for digital signage, which is not really Mac related.
Oh, that's cool though. That is
it
cool.
works. Yeah, there's some open source Python servers that let you, manage media on a TV, and you can group them so you can have a single server that controls a dozen TVs.
so were you controlling pre-made
so
hardware, and you're developing your own media source and
You
controller?
have some video clips or a slideshow you want to display, or even put up a web view. It'll do that.
That's much less expensive than even a Mac Mini, right?
Yeah,
So
well, that's what we have Mac
really
Minis
good.
before.
Yeah.
And you still once you have more than two, managing them is a pain. So it was basically a server that I would clone wherever you had in the repository and share it out. So.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's really cool. But the Raspberry Pi, yeah, that's actually pretty good.
It's a lot of cool stuff.
I'm just curious if anyone is doing this cool stuff.
I know coworker of ours who's not here uses Raspberry Pi as his firewall at home.
Oh,
He's
him.
got all,
Yeah.
he's got all his internet traffic before his router going to Raspberry Pi.
That's right.
Firewalls and
Filtering.
and all sorts of editing of web pages and things like that. It's kind of cool. You can really Raspberry Pi is a fairly powerful computer compared to what you could have bought in a store for $5,000 15 years ago. There's quite a lot of stuff you can do with it.
So if you've got little kids at home that you want to introduce to computers, Raspberry Pis are great. There's an operating system called Kano that's it's an offshoot of Debian, but it's designed specifically for introducing kids to Linux and to programming in general. And it does this sort of Alice in Wonderland through the command line type of thing where you.
What's it called?
It's called Kano, Kano.
Very cool.
And it'll load the first time you boot it. It'll be like a ASCII art bunny that will hop across the screen, and it will say let's let's see if the Wi-Fi's on. And it'll tell you how to type ping, and you'll click Google, and it's not working.
It's sold out. We're looking at it right here. They are sold
Yeah.
out due to popular demand.
So
Take the kit.
That's the kit. You can buy the kit, and it's really cute. But you can also just go and download the operating system.
It is super cute.
How do you spell that?
Put it on an SD card.
Kano. And it's kano.me is the
Yeah.
URL for that. Very, very cool.
And their complete kit with the keyboard and everything is $150.
That's amazing.
It doesn't come with a monitor, though, so you
Doesn't
gotta
come
hook it
with
up to a TV or something like that.
Yeah.
But the idea of a setup wizard being not GUI and awful, instead it's a tutorial on how to do it for real.
Yeah,
Interesting
it'll teach you
concept.
Basic bash. At some point, the GUI pops up and gives you a couple of options. If they have something that's sort of similar to Scratch, and you get to build your own version of Minecraft, your own version of Pong, using those visual blocks.
That's really intriguing. I like that. Wow.
But supposedly that's the original intention of Raspberry Pi.
Right, whereas
Yeah.
education.
Education product. But I just saw recently someone posted that there's so BeagleBone is this other product, which is a complete Linux machine on a board, and they actually just made a single chip version of it, of the single 1-inch square, I think zip socket. It's a chip with an entire computer on it. I'm not sure I wouldn't know how to use that, but it's pretty cool. But then when I did the hardware thing in MacTech, so I did it with Arduino. So BeagleBone and Raspberry Pi are complete computers. Arduino is a controller. It's a microcontroller, so it's not designed for heavy computational tasks. It's designed for very fast. You're reading inputs and you're doing outputs.
Right.
So it's stupid but quick. But the project, I really wanted a project that I thought would be useful because I hate sort of, make something blink. You're done.
Yeah.
And I did a project that I do think is useful, which is building a keyboard. And the project was to build a two-button keyboard or a three-button keyboard.
Ones and zeros?
No, so the idea was you could program to do anything, but so one of the buttons on the keyboard is a switch. So it's just a non-momentary switch. It's a full toggle switch, and it would just send T continuously. So you plug it into your Mac and press the switch, and then you can turn it on. And it's the same as holding the T key down on your keyboard. Which, if you're working with headless Macs, which I used to do a lot of, it'd be great. You don't have to carry a whole keyboard around.
I have a weight from the science department.
Yep.
It's just the right weight.
Right, but
It's horrible.
I'd go into a room and there'd be no keyboards.
Right.
But it wouldn't be a keyboard
Right.
to put a weight on. It was just a rack of excerpts. So I could just stick this in the USB port in the front and press the switch, and it would do this, and I could look through the target disk mode automatically. But that sort of been the thing I find interesting with Arduino is building I/O devices. And you can theoretically build your own custom keyboard. The thing I've discovered putting together the idea is that it's actually much more expensive than having someone build you a really, really nice keyboard.
Even the ones that are really expensive, building it yourself is even more expensive.
If you add up just the switches, it's more expensive than buying one of those really fancy keyboards. I tried at one point to build a keyboard in the form of an English concertina. That was challenging.
Well, to do a keyboard, you need either a pre-made or I don't know if it's feasible to roll your own USB chip. So does Arduino provide that now?
Yeah.
Okay.
It provides a full. Well, so the board we used for the demo in particular is the Teensy board, which is an Arduino compatible board. It has a sort of you can mimic any kind of USB device with it.
Okay.
Which you can do with regular Arduino, but it's hard. But with this thing, you can just sort of tell it to be a keyboard, be a USB I/O device.
It reminds me of this picture that you just shared on Slack. It reminds me of that Simpsons episode where Homer.
Bird.
Yeah.
On the TV.
And Homer's doing that job from home. He's got to press all as it Y every time.
Really spoiling the act.
All right. Anyone else doing anything interesting with maybe hardware or chip solutions? No.
As a prequel to the Frogger 45 that I'm going to finish editing at some point before 2017. I'm using the Knock to Unlock newer version called, it's even called MacID, because I want to fill my logs with Bluetooth disconnect errors. But also because on a regular basis, because lots of hardware we can throw at problems at my work, I go in between 4 machines.
Right.
So therefore, with the watch, whatever called, complication, I can do a force press and then unlock all. Force press and lock all.
MacID isn't that like just some horrible, awful hack? I looked at that once and it was like, wow, it's just using AppleScript or some terrible thing. I would never put this on my machine.
Worse. But coming soon. Coming soon. Look out for the next episode of Emulating a keyboard,
With
having
memorized credentials
Emulating
and
keyboard. Yeah, I just remember this MacID thing. It's
having
like,
one key on all devices.
yeah.
One of those things. If you can sniff the Bluetooth, you could set up secure unlock and spoof the Mac Bluetooth device. You could set a secure unlock.
Yeah.
If Bluetooth stayed up long enough for you to do it.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
Okay.
So after that fail,
Oh, yeah. So I had a second question, and this was sort of for the MDM people in the house that build their own MDM and things like that. So I think we're probably a little bit behind the times in getting our Macs on DEP, which I know a bunch of people have moved to. So my question is for the people who are building these MDMs and understand this a lot better than I do. If you're building an MDM and you built it with iOS in mind, and now you want to add your Mac fleet to this MDM, should it just work, or do you now need to make a bunch of changes
So
that support the Mac?
So the Mac editions are later on, but they're basically, so the way the MDM works in general is you're shovingplists between devices and a server.
Yep.
And depending on what the plist says, the server will send you another and whatever. So that's the whole protocol. It's RPC plists back and forth. So extending it, is not a problem. The reason I started, hacking in my own server is because a lot of the vendors just don't offer what I want. Like Casper has, but there's a command called, install application, which will take a signed PKG or .app and install it for you. Pretty much none of the vendors have implemented that for OS 10 devices. It looks like Casper has to add quick add, like you can add their enrollment tool and enroll their devices, but you can't, use it to install Puppet or use it to install Monkey or something. And that's kind of the limitation. And look at all the other MDM vendors right now; they're just doing iOS-related commands. Extending it is pretty easy though. You just have to add the commands from the protocol that are OS 10 specific and handle them. It's kind of a shame that none of the vendors have done it.
Yeah.
How does it do apps from the App Store then? Is there a different command for that?
For that, you do VPP, but yeah, there's install application. I'd have to look back at the spec because that's one area I actually haven't focused. So what I'm focusing on is exactly, trying to get things like Monkey or Puppet added to my Macs via DEP. Unfortunately it's a bit limited even if you do add it, because one thing I discovered last week is you can't install an application at the login window. So like with Monkey, you can you bootstrap a Mac by installing that hidden file in the shared folder. You can't. It'll install, but only after the user logs in. So it's.
They wait until you're in the land.
It's nice if you want to prompt the user with Managed Software Center completely full of optional installs, and you can have a custom window that says if you want to have your Mac configured, press restart and bootstrap it after that, or you can give the user the option to jump into Chrome or whatever.
Yeah.
So when the JSS does it, Casper, are they installing that quick add package after you log in or during the setup registration?
It's installed after you log in.
Interesting. Okay.
So the Mac will register the command before you sign in, but the actual application will get downloaded from the server.
Sounds like maybe a feature request for Apple.
Yeah, I don't think they'll go down that.
Well, I mean, you guys say that now, right? But like, they've slowly added features to the MDM spec. Like 3, 4 years ago, none of the stuff we're even talking
Sure,
about
most
was
of it for iOS.
right. But it's slowly crept to like the Mac side. I'm just saying, like,
There really isn't feature powered stuff.
yeah,
I agree with you. They're adding things slowly to even to OS 10, but their focus is clearly
Right.
on iOS.
you could see it obviously with the last release of iOS, but doesn't hurt to always ask, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And if it doesn't run until they're logged in, a lot of your sculpting power is out the window.
Well, I mean, if you are imaging before DAP kicks in.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, I mean, I understand in a lot of people's cases, their goal is just to get a Mac drop shipped from Apple,
Into the
open it up, and it's done, right? They don't ever have to touch it. For us, that's not so much of an issue. You know, our security people like us throwing down an image that we know where it came from. So,
But at least you can like, keep the inventory, and it will still do the login window bootstrap because the tools are already in the image.
Yeah,
So
so
launch daemons will have loaded on first boot.
yeah, so if you do that, so I've been thinking of doing that, where I still, like right now, I suppress the setup assistant. I'm thinking of doing, the same image as I've done until now, which installs Moonkey and installs the bootstrap, but not suppressing the setup assistant, and handing those devices to an end user and have them, because you can. One thing you can do at the setup assistant is prompting them for AD credentials or whatever else, so they can, with DEP enrollment, if they get their laptop shipped directly to their house, or they buy it, while at the conference somewhere,
right.
they can get prompted for company credentials at the setup assistant, and you can use those credentials to authenticate against anything. It's a authentication digest challenge, and you can take that and authenticate against SAML or anything.
Well, hey, Victor.
Hey.
It's Pepine. Hey, how's it going? Hey, just to clarify, Apple actually gives. What's funny, Alistair?
Hey, high five.
You're fuzzy, but I can still see.
Hi. How you doing?
I see you. Pardon my voice. I have a little bit of a cold. So just to clarify, at the DEP time, you can prompt for user credentials. Those can be either basic or digest auth. Later on, you also have the anytime a user logs in with that is a user who is in some sort of directory system, it will also send a user authentication check-in, and you can then also authorize them against the backend system. That is digest only. It's a little easier to use basic at DEP time because you can at least pipe through the user's credentials to, let's say, an LDAP and do stuff that I tested with, do a simple bind to make sure that they are at least authorized enough to talk to your directory backend. Digest gets a little trickier because you need to pass all that on to another backend without you actually getting involved. I know that AD is kind of a pain because if you want to use HTTP digest, you have to flip, I believe, an option that's something like use reversible hashing for the password in AD. And I don't know that a lot of AD admins are going to be interested in storing. It's basically an MD5 hash, I believe, that they use for that HTTP digest auth. You have to store that in an AD record. That might not be, something everyone might want to do, but you have to do extra work. But at least on DEP time, you can do basic if you just wanted to get a basic level of authentication going. So that's kind of helpful.
Oh, thank you. That's really interesting. So with the basic, you can intercept and pass it off to.
Yeah, I've tested that. So I just basically, no pun intended with the basic, but I punch in my credentials. I then pass it on to a simple LDAP bind and just say use his credentials to perform a bind, and then disconnect. And if it comes back thumbs up, I pass you on. if it's no good, the little sheet will say, credentials, incorrect username or password, try again. So you don't have to do much else. You just either send back a 403 or a 200 HTTP, and that's it. That's all you got to do.
Nice. That's interesting. So, yeah, in our case, we would be passing it on to something slightly custom, not LDAP or BD. Oh, that's really good information. That's interesting. But, yeah, I mean, what we were talking about a little earlier is kind of frustrating that the Mac really isn't up to the management standards of where iOS is. I mean, even certain management features, right? You ask Apple, hey, how can we do this? Oh, just push this profile. And you find out, oh, that only works on iOS, not OS 10. But I think just out of the gate, DEP is really interesting in how much it strongly asserts a corporation owns this device. That's sort of the winning feature for me for the moment.
So another thing, advantage sort of that you get with building your own versus the MDM vendors is that the DP server will actually only talk to an MDM server. It'll give you some credentials that you can use to talk to the API, but it will sign those credentials as the server's cert. So like if you're using JSS, you kind of have to go and hunt around. I'm not sure if anyone found where they keep the OAuth credentials. That's what it uses. So DEP is actually a JSON API.
Right.
That's all it is, and you need auth to authenticate. But if you're doing your own, and both Pine and I have written client libraries for talking to it, you can pull the new devices out. And one thing I'm trying to do is create monkey manifests automatically based on DEP.
Oh, wow. Huh.
The information you get is a little bit bland right now. You just get serial numbers. They have a field for asset tag, but I still haven't asked how to wrap around like how do you get those and what exactly the asset tag field is.
256 bar card. Go. Just assume. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So, Casper will act as an MDM for both Mac and iOS devices.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
They want you to use up all your licenses.
And do they do any other platforms, like Android?
They do a
It's like limited.
BYOD limited version for Android.
Yeah.
Mobile Iron or AirWatch or one of those
Almost every other MDM
Does
vendor
both.
does all three.
does Android, iOS, and Mac to some limited degree, possibly for anyone.
With a very limited degree for Macs.
Well, with
Yeah.
Mac.
Probably more for BlackBerry.
Right. Like all the other MDM vendors, they support almost all the mobile platforms. Jamf does, strictly OS 10 and iOS.
How easy is it to split a domain up, right? So that you have apple.com and you want Mobile Iron to be managing all your iOS devices and Casper to be managing your Macs through DEP.
You can have multiple servers in the portal, so you can assign devices, to a specific. So the MDM server doesn't actually see the devices until they get assigned.
Right. So, but Apple can split those for you, however. Right, because with DEP, the corporate purchase through Apple is what sort of makes them collect that serial number and follow that through. Is that correct? I might be
Yeah.
wrong.
For DEP, yes.
DEP, yeah.
For MDM,
MDM, anyone can enroll.
you can split it up however you want. It's on you.
Right.
Well, you were supposed to be able to, within DAP, have multiple organizations and that will have multiple MDMs even, because...
Right, but what about a single organization?
It's a little all mashed together right now, right? If you have multiple orgs within your company because they have their DUNS requirements, that one one entity can only have one entry. If you have multiple sub-orgs, everyone can see each other's MDM. You can go around and stealing people's devices if you wanted to. So they need a little extra layer, I think, in there of where you can only see your own group's devices and MDM servers you may have in there. At least in my opinion, it's a little all for one for all kind of right now still.
It's a little very secure. I mean, but like it's another login. One of the 179 different Apple ID logins that use a completely different auth system.
Yeah.
Then you need to use a separate one and enable 2FA for it. Yep, it's awesome.
Yeah, any admins that get access to this need their own specific Apple ID just for this service. So,
Well,
like,
so that's extra secure. Well, they made you go through an extra hoop.
Yeah. So.
Yes, they warned us, do not reuse anything for anything. You'll lose access to things.
The whole enrollment process is beyond ridiculous because I was trying to sign up and then it asks you, like, are you authorized on behalf of the organization to do this? And so I stopped and I gave it to my boss because, I'm not actually, even though I'm managing the Macs, I'm not financially responsible for them in the same way. So he set up an admin account with them. They have to call us to confirm. Now, the phone call, they ask you a bunch of questions. They basically ask you, are you authorized to do this? And how many devices do you have? And whether you have an MDM. Those are the 3 questions that they ask you. And then they let you create an account using a completely separate Apple ID for everything, just for deployment.
And that wasn't through like your support reps or your SE or your. This was a separate unit that just okay.
Yes.
So this is all over the phone.
Apple.
Right.
Hello, this is Apple.
Right. Well, that's so different from our experience because this was all wink and nods and elbow nudges, and they made it happen.
was this a very long time ago?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Their
their process probably just wasn't quite in place yet.
A month and a half ago, maybe. Okay. A month ago. But anyway, so he signed up, created his account. They give you a one-time recovery key that they make you print out, and they'll never show it to you again.
Yeah, hang on the wall or something.
Yeah. But then if you want to delegate the account to another admin, just like you would with like the developer portal, you can't delegate it to somebody who already has an Apple ID.
Oh.
That person has to go and create
Right.
a deployment Apple ID for.
Isn't the easiest way around that just to create an alias and?
That's what we
feels
did.
like
yeah.
it, right?
So I haven't.
I mean, that's how we did it, but like.
They tell you not to use group accounts either. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Well, they can tell you all they want. They can't
I know.
force it.
Thanks.
It's like
ignored.
Yeah.
Take that under advisement.
So, with a single organization, though, let's say you have, can you have multiple MDM servers through DEP for a single organization?
Yes.
Based on platform, perhaps.
Yes, but you can't automatically split by device type. So that's something you still have to.
How do you end up assigning what goes where? Then?
You can do it via DEP. Well, actually, you can't.
Just through their portal on
Yes.
your own?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's I don't remember exactly, but I don't think there's a command for reassigning from one server to another via the API.
I don't think there is either. You have to do some of it in the portal itself. But at least you can do it by PO. So if you have a bunch of machines, and they also give you a handy dandy CSV template if you want to do it yourself. So, they're covering the bases on low-level tech here.
All right. Well, thank you both. That's more detailed information than I would have gotten from Apple. That's but, yeah, thank you.
Just quick question. With the CSV, what can you actually do when you upload it? Like, what are you allowed to do?
Oh, it's like 2-3 fields. It's the serial number and the MDM server, I believe you want to assign it to. Or the command you want to do. So unassign, assign, or the super destructive disown, right? Disown, which is super final.
Yeah.
And do you have to unassign before you assign, or does an assign just automatically take over whatever was there previously? Or,
Good question. I haven't tried it yet, but it's easy to do. Just create a dummy dummy MDM server entry, and see what it says. I can imagine that they want you to unassign, then reassign.
right.
That's good to know, though. There was someone on Slack like earlier this week asking about that. They want to like get rid of all the computers from DEP, and they were like, I can't click through all these computers. We have like over 1,000. It's like there's got to be a way to do that.
You can download a list too. You can say, give me a list of everything that's registered to this particular MDM server, and then you can sort of curate it on your own, and then re-upload it as a CSV file for whatever command you want to apply to that list. So, yeah, at least you get a little bit of help there.
All right.
Great. Anybody else with more iOS and MDM questions than I just had? Awesome. Hey, Brian, while we have you here, I think just before you joined, we were talking about Penn State conference. You want to plug your session?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm always ready to plug.
Actually, you're doing a whole big workshop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm doing two. So first time at PSU doing or anywhere doing a workshop. I'm doing it with Tim Perfit of Two Canoes, who has been writing some tools that go with the Raspberry Pi. He has a Raspberry Pi card cloner, SD card cloner. I think he actually has like a multiple something. He's always writing, cool gadgets that you didn't know you needed, but in this case, it's kind of handy to clone a whole bunch of SD cards that are usually the boot device for a Raspberry Pi. He was kind of planning to do a session, and he asked people like, "Hey, what could I do in the workshop?" And I said, "Well, hey, you could always do a portable netboot server," because I had been setting one up, sort of in testing, just to see if that was feasible. And it's feasible. It's it's very very low level really. So I said, "Hey, you want to join me?" So I got roped into that one, but it'll be fun because we're going to do a workshop where every attendee will set up their own portable netboot server using my BSD Pi tool and also Reposado to have sort of a portable Monkey and Apple Update and netboot server all in one. And then we're going to kind of go through how to set it up, testing it, getting images on there, getting content on there. So we're kind of in the middle of setting it up right now, and that is a half-day session. So that's, I guess, about 4 hours, the morning session, and they'll be fun. I think it's a fun thing to just tinker with, even if you're not necessarily going to use it right away. It'll be fun to get the hang of some useful things you can do with the Raspberry Pis. And I'm also doing a session later in the week, sort of in the state of the open source for Mac admins, and I'm kind of going to go through all the various things that at that point in time the average starting or advanced admin can do with the various tools that are out there, and combine them in useful ways to make your life a little or a lot easier. So come one, come all. It's a great conference, and ice cream as well.
Very cool. Those both sound really, really good. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else with questions, comments, thoughts before we wrap up? Anybody struggling with anything? Need us to know about something?
You mean just in the realm of computer?
Yes, just in computers, man.
I mean, we're finally kicking the habit, and my last straw with the product from the company in Minnesota was sending the FileVault2 key and checking it against the machine on every single inventory run. That was about the time where I was like, you know what, this really needs to end. It's not me, it's you. And so I'm trying to get the API for Sal. I'm a couple of versions out of date, and I need to get that going. And then I need to automate my Puppet Bootstrap, because we're still kind of like, really? really, Puppet Labs? Okay, now the company formerly known as Reductive Labs and now is once Puppet. Do you really have your Mac ducks in a row? And I still can't get like environments synced to the WAN. But anyway, I'm trying to get that streamlined workflow and get my OS query based inventory stuff into Sal, and then I can let that MySQL and Tomcat monstrosity just fade off into the wilderness.
Okay. Sorry.
I mean, I did the last upgrade and then found that there was a new bug where it was going to restrict more things than you were actually planning for if you turned on any of the things. And so I was kind of like, you know what, that's great. My last upgrade to the JSS has bugs in it that I need to do more work in the JSS to turn off. But I learned my lesson. We got our money's worth, and
Yeah.
It's just a lot of pieces to replace, one at a time.
gonna have to. I mean, like we got a lot up. Sal's been up for a while,
Nice.
so it's more about getting the customizations into it. And those, luckily, you only really do need to write once, and it's got plug-in sync now, so I don't need to worry about how it did OS query before. I don't need to worry about factor. I can just have anything feed the web little widgets with data.
Very cool.
So it's just actually now buckling down to do that after we took over university. Jury's still out on whether or not we're allowed to manage them. There's only like 500 of them, so you know, one or two. What could go wrong?
I can't think of a single thing.
They'll figure it out.
I have a kind of computer question. Has anyone played with HashiCorp's tools other than like Vagrant for stuff? They have Terraform and
Looked, but didn't pull the trigger.
To fulfill what part of the workflow in particular?
So I've been using Terraform on and off a little bit for provisioning VMs when I need them, and it's been great. Terraform it's sort of like Puppet, except it changes. So it's designed kind of around immutable infrastructure, but you can describe what your hardware should look like and put that in Git, which is kind of great. But the one I'm looking at a lot is Vault. For doing it looks to be great for managing device certificates. So I was just wondering if anyone else either is looking at or is interested.
Our security team, which is a bunch of top-notch individuals, any day now are going to get their HSM, and we're going to have a CA. It's gonna be the best. I have the best. Everyone says it's the best CA. The most certs, the best certs come from my CA, except they haven't actually bought it yet. So right now we can't do SCCM with the Macs. There's lots of things we can't do. I was thinking about Vault for secrets in Puppet because I want to push licensing through Puppet. I don't want anything licensing-wise in Monkey. I don't want to worry about anybody owning Monkey to get software. But I just haven't gotten to that level of trust with Puppet Labs, the artist formerly known as Puppet Labs, that I've figured out how to do that because I need to know that they can do it reliably well.
There's actually somewhere in GitHub the hire a Vault.
Yeah. I mean, there's also Black Box is what I was kind of looking at for the Puppet specific stuff, as if I was worried about stuff in clear text when I'm kind of not. Like Puppet will rule the roost of getting something securely to the device. That's what I'm more worried about. Not worried about when it's on the device that it's applying the configuration to. But supposedly there's also something called Git crypt now. So you can encrypt what you send optionally as a filter, or I'm assuming smudge or whatever it's called, in the repo itself. So that might be like a middle ground that if I cared about, like if that was my current problem, then that might solve my current problem. But right now I'm in search of a problem that either Black Box or Git crypt would do, And then Vault, I can't move R or to some PKI that they don't want to use. They need to actually use SCCM to patch Flash one of these years. They're going to do that. And when they do, they're going to have a CA behind it.
All right.
Gosh darn it. Because right now, everything is self-signed.
Yeah.
Because YOLO. And because that's why they wear the suits. Go to court. Explain what's going on.
I realized one of our participants on Hangout, Vaughn Miller, is going to be doing a workshop at Penn State. I don't know if he cares to tell us about it or not, but he's doing a Mac deployment options workshop.
Yeah, that's with me.
Yeah, I'm with Bohms. Same as he's doing. We're doing that together.
Fantastic.
We're going to be basically, I guess the way that the concept of the session came out was a lot of people ask, come to the community as more Macs kind of join enterprise environment and what. They start off with the golden monolithic image, and the goal with this workshop was to say, okay, this is how a lot of people used to do things, but there are so many other ways you can do things, and these are some of the tools that you can use to kind of move you towards those methods. So it'll cover some of the real basic stuff with monolithic imaging, packaging, some open source tools that can let you get a little bit more modular, net booting, VPP, DEP. So it's targeted towards essentially being introduced or things a certain way, and they want to learn about other ways and see how the people are doing it. What tools are out there? So. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Anyone going to Mac DevOps in Vancouver?
Oh, yeah.
That's
that
like
was
the week
I
after,
forgot to
right?
mention that one before because I'm going to it and I forgot about it. I want to go to that one next year. Next year, that's where I'm going. I will make it to that one. Mac DevOps is. Do you know the dates? It's the week before Penn State, which is
June 20th and 21st.
Yeah. Okay.
I should know because I'm speaking.
Hey.
I better be going.
Good. Good. I'm sorry. I forgot that one.
And I got roped into doing a panel talk on configuration management.
It's a good one.
I guess.
Want
We'll
to
see.
know about that.
When we talk about Puppet at this point, we'll see. Familiarity breeds contempt. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Are all the other guys shot?
No, the Puppet also.
Well,
Chef and some
Well, wait.
Ansible.
I don't know.
uh,
I know that the Dropboxers, since Sam left, and Sam was the last one that was like, no, shut up, Puppet, Puppet. And now he's gone. So like, next Jeff.
yeah, it looked, it wasn't compelling. Like, honestly, like, I'm not a fan of Puppet, but everything else seems no better.
Just not a fan of Ruby.
I'm not a fan of Ruby. That's
Hey, there you go.
If you're not a fan of Ruby, Chef is even less compelling.
Well, I mean, it's all kind of, between Ansible and Chef, it feels the same to me in the fact that it's kind of chaosy, and that, like, let's just do everything. It can be anything. You can have things be in the pure programming language, but that feels too much like you're also doing all of your world building every time you go to solve a problem.
Yeah. And for us, our main thing is it has to be, like, if it relies on a server at any point or any type of connection to a server, like, no, it's no. Like, solve in Ansible or I'll sort of SSH in and do a bunch of crap.
This local.
Yeah, sort of. Anyway, yeah, I'm giving away my talk here by that. So.
Yeah.
Well, it's a nice generic title, so
Yeah.
you have all this time to brush it up, figure out the content.
All right. Going once. Going twice. Thank you, everybody. See you next month. Bye-bye.